and welcome to the Business Debate. I'm Sarah Lockett, and today we're talking about human capital, the people in your organisation. In today's work environment, technology-enabled, information-rich, constantly changing and connected, leaders need to work in a new way, both with and through others. Well, to discuss this, I'm joined in the studio by two people from the best practice insight and technology company CEB. The Managing Director for the UK and Ireland, Nick Shaw, and Principal Executive Advisor, Claire Moncrief. Nick and Claire, welcome to the Business Debate.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, if we ask you, Nick, first of all, this new hyper-connected way of working, why does that demand a new type of leadership, and what is it?
So our extensive research into what makes for really high-performance leadership indicates that most leaders are actually very effective at task performance, so improving the performance of their individual business unit. But the really effective leaders are those that are able to achieve the individual performance and the performance in their business unit, but go beyond that as well. So improve the performance of individuals outside of their team and make sure they lead their teams to be really effective across the organisation. And that's what we at CEB term enterprise leadership.
Enterprise leadership, so this is your phrase. And if I can ask Claire, you know, businesses will be interested in the bottom line. What is the benefit for them?
Well, just to add on to what Nick said, he talked about how leaders who are very successful today work more broadly across the organization. They work with and through others to get things accomplished in productive collaboration. And when they do that well, they not only drive up the business unit revenues for their own business unit to about 12%, but they can have up to a 5% impact on other business units as well. We call that a spillover effect. Unfortunately, though, today most leaders aren't very good at that, working with and through others. So on average, only 12% of leaders are actually good at that, and it's closer to 8% here in Europe.
Does it involve giving up some control then?
Absolutely, it does. And that's a big fear for leaders. 2/3 of leaders believe that they can't be successful today without autonomy and control. But in the complex world that we work in, that's a physical impossibility.
All right, well, if we look, Nick, at leadership development for emerging leaders, sort of the next generation of leaders, how is that going? Are people getting it right?
Well, they're not, and there's a few reasons why not. So in effect, what we're seeing is organisations are continuing to think about that individual leadership performance that we talked about earlier. So they're developing leaders in that way. Actually, what we need is organisations to think a bit differently about their emerging leaders. So they need to identify leaders that have the ability, the aspiration and the engagement to adapt their approach to continue to learn. We also need leaders to change their mindset. So what helped them to be successful in the past probably won't help them to be successful in the future.
Do you agree with that, Claire?
Yes, I would. And it's also true for current leaders. In fact, perhaps even more true, because these leaders are in positions of responsibility today. They got there because of doing things that worked. Unfortunately, because of the complex environment we find ourselves in, those things won't continue to work. And it does require a different approach and a different set of strategies.
Yeah, and I guess that's why we also see that organisations report they spend more and more money on senior leadership development, but probably only about 1/3 think that that's been successful in any way at all. So organisations are continuing to develop leaders in the same way they have done before, so focusing on these individual traits and characteristics, not thinking about what leadership means in today's complex, ever-changing world.
And if this new style of leadership is so sort of obvious, why are more companies not doing it?
Well, in fact, you actually mentioned one of the reasons already. So one of the reasons that leaders don't adopt this style of leadership is the fear of lack of or loss of control. And they worry about that, and they feel they don't know how to be successful without control, because that's a tool that's worked well in the past. Another concern they often have is around information and accessibility of information. So how can I influence the workflow of others if I'm not entirely sure what they're doing? And how can I leverage them to drive my success if I don't, in fact, know how they could help me? And the third is a rewards risk. So leaders are worried that they won't be paid for this new style of leadership, and they probably won't, because performance management has not kept up with this approach to leadership either. And so today, very few organizations successfully reward this work with and through others.
So is this something that just HR departments are thinking about, or is it something that CEOs and boards are concerned with?
We know that this is absolutely top priority on the board agenda. Our research tells us that, and we hear from our interactions with members that that's the case. And they should be concerned, because we know that more leadership transitions fail than are successful. So it's a really big topic and a big concern at the board level.
And in fact, when we think about succession management, that is the #1 concern at the board level right now. So worrying about the leaders we have, the leaders we need for the future execution of business strategy becomes incredibly important and is absolutely on the board table. So although we know this new way of thinking about leadership might represent a mindset shift for both leaders and companies, the real question we believe, especially given the growth objectives most companies have, is can you afford not to be thinking about it right now, particularly if your competitors are?
All right, well, Nick Shaw and Claire Moncrief from CEB, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.